We begin in West Africa, where Nigeria's president, Bola Tinubu, has been urged by certain civil society organizations to reveal his assets in public. According to the Human and Environmental Development Agenda, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, African Center for Media and Information Literacy, and the Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, the move would help send a signal to his appointees about the need to ensure accountability. Larry Suraj, chairman of HEDA, noted that the Freedom of Information Act should be able to give the public access to the specifics of any asset disclosed by any public official. In a similar vein, Serap maintained that President Tinubu should begin with a clean slate by swiftly disclosing all his assets to the public. And to talk about this, I'm being joined live on the news by a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo. Good afternoon, Jide. Glad to have you join me.
Compliments of the Utah season, my sister. My pleasure.
I wish you the same. Do you think the disclosure of President Tinubu's assets would set a precedent for accountability among his appointees?
I doubt. I seriously doubt, because we've seen this before. Recall in 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari did declare his assets, and the vice president then, Goodluck Jonathan, follows suit. But in 2019, neither Buhari nor Umaru Musa Yar'Adua declared his assets in 2007. Yes, in 2007, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua declared his assets, and Goodluck Jonathan followed suit. But his ministers did not declare. In 2015, we saw Muhammadu Buhari declaring his assets, and his vice president, that's Yemi Osinbajo. But in 2019, neither of them declared their assets, and the ministers were not compelled to declare their assets. So even if Tinubu declares his assets, he's not constitutionally empowered to enforce compliance by his ministers. And let me bring this to the attention of our viewers. What has happened over the years is that even for the few state governors and the president who have declared their assets, there has not been asset verification by the Code of Conduct Bureau, because that institution, even though it was established by the Constitution, is poorly funded. Imagine Code of Conduct Bureau is having less than 1 billion for its operations in a year. This is a body, a constitutionally established body in Section 156 or thereabout, either Section 153 or 156 of the Constitution, as one of the 14 federal executive bodies. Yet, they do not have enough resources to go on asset verification exercise, both within and outside of the country, to know whether those assets that have been declared are actually owned by those who declared those assets. So it's a welcome development. I do agree with those NGOs or CSOs who have called for the declaration of assets, Mr. President, but it's not going to change anything, because one thing is for you to declare the assets. The institution that is supposed to verify those assets, if they are hamstrung, if they are financially handicapped to do so, then it means nothing. People will just say, so he's worth these billions. I mean, my governor in Oyo State is said to worth about 46 billion, and so bloody what? During his second term now, I'm talking of Governor Seyi Makinde, he didn't even bother to declare his asset. But the one he declared in 2019, everybody was wowed. That's where it has ended. Nobody has done an independent verification of those assets.
But Mr. Ojo, having said that, what could be the potential impact of these public disclosure of the president's assets, in terms of perception of corruption within the government?
That's part of what I've just said. It's meant to, if the law is altered, if the Constitution is altered to allow for public access to these asset declaration forms, it will enable whistleblowers to be able to determine whether these asset declarations were padded. Let me share something with you. In US, it was discovered that Donald Trump padded his asset as president of US, that he exaggerated his net worth. And that has come out from the judicial probe, in which some of his aides who assisted him, including his former attorney, his former lawyer, who has now turned to crown witness, has come out to say, look, we did this for the president. He just instructed us that we should say it's worth X billion dollars when it's actually worth far much less. So people do that, but in our own climate, there is no law that compels a public office holder to declare publicly. What the law says is that before your assumption of office, you will declare your asset. On leaving office, you will declare your asset. Nobody has called for the asset declaration form of President Muhammadu Buhari. It's been out of power for about 6 months now. So what I'm saying invariably is that, yes, for purposes of anti-corruption, it may be worth it to say, yes, let's just know what you are worth, and people may just be able to independently verify some of these assets. But because the institution that is supposed to do this professionally is being financially handicapped, is not well resourced, it amounts to nothing at the end of the day beyond the media hype that will come with it. So what we actually need is the alteration of the Constitution to compel public disclosure of the assets of any public official, and for the individuals and corporate organizations to be able to access this after its declaration, so that it can then be used as an anti-corruption weapon. Because, again, we need to understand that in Nigeria today, we do not have whistleblower protection law. Even where you do an independent research and you find out that one governor or the president has padded his asset, if you're not very careful, you can be missing. You can go missing. If you are becoming an irritant, if you are becoming embarrassment to some of the political office holders. So there's no law that protects you as a whistleblower. But like I said ab initio, I do agree with Serap and Eda and Kakol and those who have called for Mr. President out of moral suasion, because this is just more like an appeal, out of moral suasion to say, declare your assets so that we can know that you are setting the pace in anti-corruption. But without an independent verification protocol, without an independent verification ability, it then becomes like, just another piece of information. I'm not sure since 2007 that Umaru Musa Yar'Adua set the pace by declaring his asset publicly. I also recall that a couple of governors, like former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, the current governor of Oyo State, and a couple of other governors have declared their assets. And of course, President Muhammadu Buhari did, and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. All of these people that have done so, what has come out of it? What have we made out of those asset declarations? So the law needs to empower citizens to be able to access this document and work collaboratively with the Code of Conduct Bureau to independently and professionally verify these assets, in which case we can then ask the necessary question: if you are worth 50 billion or 100 billion, can we then know how much taxes you are paying on these assets? Can we know your tax liabilities? Can we know whether where you have worked in the time past, whether you are worthy of this asset? Because somebody will say, I retired as a level 14 officer. What is the total pay? Or even a level 70 officer, what is the total pay package for 35 years of somebody like that? When we add ICPC saying that 2 individuals in FCT here, 2 individuals are alleged to have 301 houses traced to them.
I'm afraid that's the most we can take on the news. I'm afraid that's the most we can take on the news, Mr. Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst. Well, thank you so much for your expertise on the news.
Compliments of the youth. Have a wonderful celebration in advance.